the Know Your Gear podcast.
This was sent to me this week. I thought I'd share with you. I thought it was cool to share. So apparently, Paul Reed Smith Guitars and Gibson were in some kind of lawsuit. Go figure. Everybody seems to be in a lawsuit right now. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I want you to see it. I will put it to our link to where you can see this. This is the press release of the guitars and what's going on. I'm going to give you the Reader Digest version for those of you old enough to know what the hell that means, which just means I'm going to consolidate it, but I'm going to read one section and then we'll talk about it. This is the most important section. It's the very first section in this. It gives you an idea what's going on. So on July 15th, Paul Reed Smith Guitars announces that it will withdraw its objection to Gibson's registration of the Theodore. The Theodore trademark. So those of you guys know, the Theodore is, I believe it's that tulip-looking goofy guitar that Gibson came out, right? So this is the Gibson Theodore. So I didn't think about it because this guitar didn't really appeal to me. Like a lot of you, I saw it on Trogley's thing because whenever Gibson does something goofy, you know, Trogley's the go-to for Gibson stuff, right? So I'll go and look at it and go, oh, okay. That's what it is. I'm not paying $2,000 for that. And again, just, you know, everybody's got a different taste. But I didn't think about the fact that the Theodore was obviously a Ted McCarty thing. Okay, so this explains why there's an issue with Paul Reed Smith and Gibson, because Paul Reed Smith essentially was mentored by Ted McCarty, but more importantly, they own the name and likeness and I believe the trademarks that Ted McCarty had. So I can see why this would be a problem. This would also be an issue, I think, if like Fender was to use any of the Leo Fender type trademarking that G&L owns. So, you know, I think that's the same kind of problem is, you know, Fender can say Fender, but I don't think they can say Leo Fender kind of deal, right? And so same with Gibson. I think Gibson can say Gibson all day, but they can't say Ted McCarty. Isn't that interesting? Because Ted McCarty kind of gave his trademarking stuff. So again, we're just giving the synopsis, but I want to tell you what they said. This is the important part. It says that basically they're withdrawn its objection to Gibson's registration of the trademark Theodore. PRS continues to hold dear and protect its long-standing agreement with Ted McCarty and the McCarty family regarding exclusive rights to the McCarty trademark and the McCarty name and persona. It's important. I think that's why it ties into Leo Fender with G&L too. First developed directly with Ted himself for more than 25 years, PRS concluded that in this instance, resources were better spent on crafting high-quality instruments rather than fighting with Gibson at a regulatory agency. After a series of private negotiations with Gibson, Gibson has also agreed to drop its opposition. In other words, Gibson was basically, you know, trying to sue them back. Again, I'm not an attorney, so some of the attorneys, when I talked about it last time, they're like, that's not the right terminology. Look, I've said this before. They're not going to, I don't understand what you're saying. No one else is going to understand it too, for the most part. The whole point of being a lawyer is to be confusing. So anyway, as basically Gibson is withdrawing its complaint of PRS using the 594 name and the Silver Sky Nebula, because apparently Gibson has trademarks on those or thinks they do. So more importantly, and it could go on and read this. And if you're really that, interested, please read it. Really what you're getting the sense of is Paul Reed Smith is saying, exactly what we said on this show. We don't want to fight about this crap. You know what I mean? We could take our time, our money, and our resources and put it into better things for the customers than who's using what name and what, right? Does anyone, I mean, come on, at the end of the day, this is the same argument I would say about Gibson, I'm saying about Paul Reed Smith, and that's why I appreciate Paul Reed Smith wising up. No one is looking at this and going, oh, is this PRS? Is Paul Reed Smith involved with this? I don't know, right? Like no one's confused about that. Obviously, I didn't even put two and two together that this was a Ted McCarty guitar. I just thought it was called the Theodore thing. Makes sense now. Theodore, Ted McCarty, right? Theodore McCarty. And this is his drawing he had, and they brought it back, right? So I think it's cool. And so I thought I'd share that with you guys. I almost didn't want to share it because I was like, is it that much exciting? It's not exciting news, but I thought it was probably best to talk about because it's exactly what I've been saying for the last few years. Anytime all these Gibson or any other lawsuits come up, it's the whole, isn't there better time and resources to figure this out that can improve the products for the consumers? Again, protecting consumers and protecting yourself when it comes to consumers is important. However, you know, we're going to fight over the word 594. That's great. We're going to fight over Theodore. Okay. So I thought it was cool. So that you guys know that apparently there was a fight, lawsuit, whatever you want to call it, between Gibson and PRS, and it's been resolved. Good news for everybody, and no one had to spend millions of dollars fighting, which is great. Yeah, the 11 says it was a prototype Drew. I remember the story. I think Mark Agnesi talking about it. I saw that, like most of you saw. Like I said, I looked at it and I said, I'm not paying $2,000 for that. Like it didn't get on my radar in my head as something I want to buy and have. If you like it, great, good for you. I have ugly guitars, and we can probably, like I said, have a beer and talk about whose guitar is uglier. But in ugly guitar land, that's not the ugly that appealed to me, so I wasn't interested in it, especially for $2,000. I think what I got from it, so this is why I like to talk this way, is this is how you would talk if you were hanging out with friends at a music store, at a bar, at a, it's not going to say a ball game, but you had an idea outside of a club waiting for, to play your set. I like to have those kind of conversations on the channel and not, I've investigated every detail and this is what's happening. It's more like, hey, what do you guys think? This is interesting. I think in this case, that seems bootstrapped. That sounds reasonable to me. I think this is like they looked at the situation. They thought, they're hitting us for a couple things. We're hitting them for a couple things. Maybe we could just resolve it. And it makes sense, right? It just makes sense. And again, not to rehash the whole Gibson Dean thing, but my whole thing with the Gibson Dean thing, and I like I said, is, when you guys hear Gibson is like $1 billion company, I don't think they are, but they're $100 million. I don't know what their value is exactly. If I was going to shoot a guess, 700 million. I don't know, something all in, maybe, I don't know. But my point is, $3 million is a lot of money. I told you, I used to work for a Fortune 500 company. $3 million was nothing. We would have $1 billion in receivables that we were tracking. When I came to this industry, there is nobody like that in this industry. Everybody in this industry, millions kill companies in this industry. Millions do, not tens, not hundreds. Millions kill companies in this industry, even big ones, because the margins are thin. It's a want, not a need. So it's volatile. And when they make a lot of money, they tend to get crazy with it. And then when the market slims down, they're not prepared for it. I would say when you look at the history of Fender and Gibson, and I can name a ton of others, you could say, well, maybe Phil's right, maybe Phil's wrong. Here's what I would argue. Those companies I just mentioned have filed bankruptcy in the past. So, not bulletproof, not even close. If you enjoyed this podcast clip, you can watch the entire episode by clicking the link in the description or streaming it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can also join it live every week, Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I hope to see you there. Until next time, know your gear.